I'm sure there are people that are probably saying, okay, he's talking about not setting unrealistic expectations, but what about like goal setting? You have a lot of people that are setting goals just to better their lives or to try to achieve greatness. So you're not saying to not have certain standards for your life or certain benchmarks that you want to try to, right, aspiration that you want to try to achieve. So talk about that. How do we set realistic expectations that will also help us get to our next or greatest, if that's a word?
Sure. So I talk about this in the book, and there's nothing wrong with goal setting as long as your goals are set based upon set expectations. So a lot of times when our expectations are not set, and then we create a goal, we end up becoming someone we never were created to be, and we end up doing something we were never created to do. So, for example, I talk about in the book how, let's say, our family puts a lot of pressure on educational achievement. So let's say your family, you didn't really want to go into a certain profession, but because it's what your family kind of pressured you into, you did it. So you set the goal that I want to go into this profession, I want to make a certain amount of money, and I want to live in a certain place and buy a certain home. Okay, but none of that was in your heart. So you go and do it out of sheer will, and you want to please the people that you love and that love you, and you want to make everybody happy, and you go and do it. So you set the goal and you achieve it, but you realize you're not happy. Why? Because it really wasn't your goal to begin with. Because you did it because it was what you thought everybody else wanted to make. Everybody want to make everybody else happy, and that's why I wrote this book. Because I want anybody reading this book to ask the question: what if I get to into my life and I did what was expected, but not what was destined?
Mm-hmm.
Can I live with that?
The whole word.
He's a preacher too, by the way.
Can I live with that?
You all didn't know.
If I can't live with it, then I got to do something different now. I've got to make a change now. And so when you talk about goal setting, yes, set a goal that when you talk about a goal, I talk about this in the book, you got to do a joy versus pain assessment. I believe that you should be setting goals and setting expectations that bring you joy. It doesn't mean they're easy, right? Like we go to the gym and we work out. It's painful, but it's joyful because that stress in the gym produces the result that we want. So if you're in a high power profession, or you all have a dynamic podcast, there's a lot of work goes into it. So you do feel the stress of it, but there's a joy that covers it. And if it's not joyful overall, then there's no reason to do it.
Hello.
There's just no. There's no.
I got a lot of stuff off my plate because of that thing right there. Yes.
Seriously, it's like, what are we doing? It's like, no, life is too short. This life is too short. So when we talk about goals, we need goals that motivate us. We need goals that encourage us. We need goals that are based upon set expectations. We need goals that when I set an expectation, so let me give you an example. Going back to my career, I started at 18 years old as an unpaid intern for Will Smith and worked my way up ultimately to become an executive for Sony Pictures Entertainment. And I did that for, about 10 years. And, I always had the dream and the vision of being a producer, always wanted to produce. And so at 18 years old, at 22 years old, I had a business plan for my production company. Nobody wanted to fund it, right? So I had the goal of one day having the company, but I had to understand what was realistic. There's nothing wrong with the goal of one day I want to have my production company. But at times, what made that goal realistic is when I wanted to have the company. I wanted the company at 22, right? The goal was fine. But when I put it on an unset expectation, the goal became toxic because I began to judge myself because I didn't have it. I began to feel less than because I wasn't having the company. And then it's like, it makes no sense. When I look back, I'm like, I'm glad I didn't have a company at 22. I would have lost it. I didn't know what to do with the production company. It's crazy. So my whole point is that when we talk about the goal was right, but then I had to set the expectation. I had to say, you know what, this goal is right, However, the timing is out of my control. So I recognize the timing is out of the control. I keep the goal. And guess what? I ultimately got the goal. I ultimately was able to start my own production company, but it happened 18 years after I started in the business. So I had to let go of the win and just keep preparing and keep knowing and keep working and looking for confirmation along the way. So there's nothing wrong with goal setting. Nothing wrong with it. I encourage setting goals, but please do not set goals based upon things you don't control. And one of the things we don't control is timing. You all have a dynamic podcast. The thing you don't control is who listens to it and when. I don't care how hard you try, unless you put someone under duress, you cannot control when they listen to your podcast. You can't do it. But the goal of, hey, you know what? We want to get a certain amount of downloads. We want to get to a certain stature. Okay, great. Nothing wrong with that. How do we get there? I talk about this in the book. The process is the result. Control the process. Control the guests you bring on, control how well you prepare, control the conversations you facilitate, control the marketing, the publicity. That's in your control. And the more you focus on the process, the better you are positioned to achieve whatever goal you may have.